Hello and welcome to Inspire Interactives. Inspire is a digital magazine launched by All India Professionals Congress, the AIPC, and is available on its website. AIPC is a department of the Indian National Congress that brings together professionals from all walks of life and stands committed to the tenets of diversity, inclusivity, and equality. The Inspire magazine includes interviews, articles, and features carefully curated from varied sources and focused on areas of common concern. We at Inspire interact with thought influencers, change makers, policy makers, AIPC fellows, and indeed non-fellows, and anyone and everyone with a perspective to share and a desire to be heard. It is also our constant endeavor to showcase the work being done in different parts of the country by our fellows, each AIPC fellow a professional in their own right. I am Dr. Vandana R. Singh, Editor-in-Chief of the Inspire Digital Magazine. We have here with us today Mr. Roshan Santhalia, who is the Regional Operations Officer for North India of AIPC. Roshan is an active fellow and a lawyer by profession. He completed his 5-year law program from Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad in the year 2011. He then went on to pursue a full-time degree in MSc Criminal Justice from Oxford University in 2012. Roshan has considerable experience in the field of litigation and dispute resolution. He frequently represents his clients before the Honorable Supreme Court and Delhi High Court. Other than practicing in the domain of arbitration and banking laws, Roshan has a keen interest in the field of intellectual property law and criminal law. So worry not, we have a lawyer at hand. Roshan, a very warm welcome to you to Inspire Interactives. I'm so happy you could take time out for this.
Yeah, thank you, Vandana.
Roshan, before we start, first and foremost, as you know, we are an organization of professionals, and so we are keen to know of each other's professional journeys. Our viewership is made up, as you know, of professionals who come from all walks of life, and I feel that when we get to know of other professions and the trajectories, it is enriching, and not to speak of the fact that we get to know each other better. So tell us a little bit about how you became a lawyer. Do you come from a family of lawyers, or was it a choice that you made? And also, now that you are one, what's it like to be a lawyer? In short, a day in the life of a lawyer. I'm curious to know what it's like to be inside that long flowing black robe and the white band and all the pressure that comes with it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Vandana. So, if I have to speak about my journey, I would say that my journey to become a lawyer started way back in 2005 when I was in my class 12 of my school. And coming from a family of business persons, a traditionally Marwadi family where, usually people do end up in businesses either of manufacturing or trading. It was definitely a difficult decision for me to kind of break that barrier or break that convention and take up something which is very different from the traditional occupation our family had. Law became a choice because I really used to enjoy my language, and I had a very keen interest in the subject of English right from school days. It also became a choice by elimination because maths and science were something which I didn't really enjoy. So because I didn't really enjoy those subjects, a lot of people told me that, a career in law may be good for you. And also because of the fact that, I enjoyed English a lot. When I initially proposed this to my father, there were obviously some hesitancy, to be honest with you. There were some reservations in the family as to why should I take up law when there is not a single lawyer in my family. and me being a completely first generation lawyer in the making. But then somehow I convinced my father, and the bargain that we struck, the bargain that me and my father struck was that if I could make it to one of the top national law schools, then my father will allow me to take up the profession. Otherwise, he had other thoughts. And coming from a conventional family, it would have been difficult for me to, overpower my father. So thankfully, I was able to make it to the law school at Hyderabad, and that is when I left Delhi for a good 5-year course and moved to Hyderabad to join the law school. I completed my 5-year LLB, as you mentioned, in 2011. Then I went to Oxford in 2012 to complete my master's in criminal law or criminal justice. I came back in 2012 and set up my own chambers in Delhi. That was pretty much the educational journey. As far as your question with regard to how is the life of a lawyer, or what is the typical day in a lawyer's life, how does it look like? So, I mean, I can definitely say this on this platform that anyone who enjoys reading and anyone who enjoys, let's say, reading and arguing both, law is the right profession or right career choice for them. There is a very big misconception in our society that every argumentative person can be a good lawyer. That is definitely not a true conception. That is a misconception, and therefore anyone who feels that just because they are good at arguing will not definitely may end up being good lawyers. If you have an interest to read, if you have a genuine interest to read and draft, then or write, then definitely law is a good option for you. A typical day in the life of a lawyer would be a little different from a typical day in the life of a businessman, or for that matter, in the life of a bureaucrat, or for that matter, in the life of all other, professions or occupations. Because we have to be in the courts till 3 to 4. So essentially, our effective day starts only by 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Let's say if I have 3 or 4 cases listed on a particular day in a court of law, then I will only be able to attend and complete those 3 or 4 cases in that court of law by 2 to 3 p.m. And once I'm back to my office at 3:30, then is when my actual work day starts, when I can read and complete the files for the next day and do my drafting. So usually the day extends till 8:30, and by then we wind up. Law is a very exciting profession. It's something which gives you a lot of high. It'll be also important for me to highlight that these days law is broadly divided in 2 verticals. There is corporate law, and then there is litigation, which is the dispute resolution component. Corporate law is very rewarding right from the beginning. In litigation, you take your time to set up a practice, and the monetary rewards come in later. But both components have their own highs and lows. Yeah. And therefore, anyone who's choosing law as a career can take up one of these 2 verticals. So I think, yeah, that was pretty much, a summary of what exactly my legal life has been like.
So interesting. So what you're saying is that just being argumentative is not necessarily a qualification for being a good lawyer. So point taken. But I do think that one needs to be convincing in what one says to be a good lawyer. There is another thing, Roshan, that it's a question that often comes to my mind, but one has never really had the occasion to seek a clarification on this. One hears there are these different words by which people who have studied law are referred to. For instance, earlier on, we used to hear the word barrister. When we talk of Mahatma Gandhi, it's always that he was a barrister. Then we hear some people are referred to as lawyers. Somebody else is an advocate. then there is a word attorney, and then there is a word counsel. So what's the difference between all of these? Is everybody everything, or are these words specific to certain kinds of law?
No, so to be able to answer that question, it will be important for me to explain you that some of these terms are not relevant in the Indian parlance anymore.
Mm.
You see, we have been ruled by the British for a considerably long time. And thanks to that, we have imported some words which are typical to their dictionary or
Yeah.
typical to their social context, having not much of a practical meaning in our context. So, for instance, the word barrister is a word which is only relevant in the English jurisdiction. It does not have any place in the Indian jurisdiction because in India, we don't have that strict difference between a barrister and a solicitor. So in England, anyone who drafts is the solicitor, and anyone who goes and argues before a court of law is the barrister.
I see.
They have that distinction. In India, as a practicing advocate registered with any state bar council, I can draft and argue both at the same time.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily have that distinction, in terms of practice. In India, the relevant distinction is between a senior advocate and an advocate. So one who is a senior advocate is a person who's usually designated a senior advocate after 20 to 25 years of practice at the High Court or the Supreme Court. And an advocate is someone who, as I mentioned, can draft and file. So to be honest, the distinction lies more in the nature of the jurisdiction in which you're practicing. And in India, there are only two categories of advocates, which is an advocate and a senior advocate. Bombay is one city in our country which still follows the solicitor and arguing counsel practice. But that is also, again, not strictly named by barrister as such. It's just a practice that they follow in the city without having any typical names.
And counsel, I think, is an American word.
Counsel is mostly, yes, you're right. Counsel is mostly an American word. Counsel, again, in India is also used very interchangeably. You can use counsel to say that, let's say in a big company like Indigo, they use the word in-house counsel. And that is a counsel who's on the payroll of Indigo. Whereas, you can also use the word counsel as someone who's going and arguing before a high court. So it's again very interchangeable.
An attorney would be somebody who's typically been appointed by the government to, we hear.
So attorney is a word, India's highest legal officer is called Attorney General.
Yes.
So that is obviously, the word for the India's highest legal officer who's appointed by the government of the day, which is the NDA government right now.
Yeah.
Other than that, attorney it's a purely English word, which basically means that a person who represents someone else.
I think.
So you would have heard in movies, and you would have also seen in contracts that there is this word called power of attorney.
Yes. Yes.
Which basically means that you authorize someone else to act on your behalf.
Right. Okay.
So that is, yeah.
That's interesting. I'm happy I asked you that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Roshan, you mentioned movies, and which takes me to my next thought, which is that, sadly today when we think of courts, the phrase that invariably comes to mind is Tariq pe Tariq, which has become a euphemism for delays. So even when we are not referring to courts, we are referring to something else. We might still use that word, knowing at the back of our minds that really speaking the references to courts. Funny though it may sound, and the frequency with which we use it is also pretty high. But having said that, it's really a cause for great concern that that an institution which is of ultimate importance in the country and eventually in the lives of each and every one of us should be referred to in this very light manner, or that it has been perhaps, if I may use the word, reduced to a level where it can be mentioned in this very, very flippant way, if I may say so. But then having said that, I suppose there's reason why what is said is being said. From some data that I have here, apparently the latest reports issued by National Judicial Data Grid in July 2021, there are around 3.9 crore cases pending in the district and subordinate courts. There are 58.5 lakh cases in the various high courts and more than 69,000 cases in the Supreme Court. The above, I mean, these figures are completely staggering by any standards. And it clearly shows that there is a lot that needs to perhaps be done, that there are gaps somewhere. What really is, we'll come to the reasons for it later, but first I want to understand from you, how do these, I mean, these are just figures which are huge, but how do these figures compare with the situation in other countries? Do other countries also have such kind of tendency? Of course, I would not compare ourselves to, say, very small countries or countries which have scanty population. But other countries which are similarly situated, do they also have these issues that the judiciary faces?
So, Vandana ji, to answer that question, I would not be able to throw the exact numbers as to, or let's say cite the exact numbers as to what exactly is the pendency in other jurisdictions or other countries. But I can say this with certain amount of confidence and certainty, that the average time of a case, or trial time, or an appeal time, which a court in, let's say, one of the European countries, or for that matter, even one of the Asian countries like China, or for the Singapore, or some of these Asian countries take, is much less than what we in India take. An average trial in India, an ordinary civil trial can take as many as 4 to 5 years, which is a considerably long time. And I am sure that if you talk about jurisdictions abroad, you will see that these cases would get closed within anything between 1 to 1.5 years, 12 to 18 months. So without a doubt, there is a considerable amount of difference. I personally feel that the entire pendency which is existing in the Indian court system is kind of a vicious circle, because at the end of the day, we have to realize that we are a developing economy, and there are corporations which are coming in the country. There are indigenous corporations which are arising on an everyday basis, and businesses are happening, businesses are taking place, new enterprises are being floated. So all in all, saying the litigations or the disputes will only rise going forward. And because the litigations and disputes will only rise going forward, if we do not address this problem in a systemic way, then we will be stuck in this vicious circle where the numbers will only keep increasing. There are a lot of reasons which I believe we can talk about in the next segment of this interview. But as of now, the position is indeed very precarious, as correctly mentioned by you.
So yeah, precarious is the right word for it. I mean, it's a matter of huge concern, and yes, we really are. It seems we are standing on the precipice, and we could just. What do you think would be the reasons for this? There's a tendency to think that it is general apathy, or that there's a general lack of efficiency, let us say, and so on, and that perhaps it's part of this is just the way things are done in India. But I do not really believe that the reasons can be so generalized. I'm sure there are some very specific, and I'm sure a lot of studies have been done on this as to how this can be resolved. What are the reasons? Why do we take so long to come to a conclusion in any case?
So, Vandana ji, one thing that we as an ordinary citizen, or as an ordinary taxpayer of the country, need to appreciate is that we've been talking about this problem for a very long time, and we've been cursing our luck in a lot of ways, saying that, we are in a country which just does not have the adequate judicial infrastructure. And there are so many people I know who have approached me in my life saying that, Roshan, I have been wrong, but I don't want to go to a court. I don't want to go to a court because I don't want to, be stuck in that entire legal process. And this is my misfortune that today I'm in India or doing something in India, because I can't even, go to a court and ask for a relief which I am legally entitled to. So as an ordinary citizen of the country, it is very important for us to understand the reasons as to why exactly this problem has taken place. And this problem is only aggravating. There are a number of reasons which I can, take up one by one. But broadly speaking, I would like to highlight that the entire judicial infrastructure has not been on the priority list of any of the governments. And without distinguishing between any government or any party as such, any political party as such, I would say that this problem has sustained for a long time. And the members of our parliament and the members of our legislative assembly need to do something which is out of the ordinary to be able to break through this problem. And now I'll explain to you what I'm trying to say and why I'm saying what I'm saying. You see, the national defense budget is approximately 2% of our GDP. Whereas if you talk about the budget which is allocated towards the country's judicial infrastructure, it is as low as 0.2 to 0.3% of the GDP, which means 1/10 of what we spend on our defense, almost 1/10 of what we spend on our defense. Now, I understand defense is a very, very sensitive kind of a sensitive, let's say, it's a sensitive area. It's a sensitive issue for the country. It's something which deserves that 2% very rightly. But the question is that, does the judiciary deserve only 0.2%? Can we not raise it to probably a 0.7 or a 0.8% of the GDP, or for that matter, 1% of the GDP? It's broadly speaking a question of misplaced priorities in my opinion. See, I am not saying that the judges of our country or the lawyers of the country are perfectly right in doing what they are doing. There is definitely a problem there as well. There is definitely a problem in terms of, the way judges are writing, are taking up the court matters and, disposing of the court matters and the speed and all of that. But I personally feel that there has to be a change which needs to be initiated from the top. Right now, what is happening is that the role of a judge in the Indian legal system is more or less broadly equated with the role of any other bureaucrat or any other senior level employee in the government. We need to appreciate at some level that there is a broad difference between the two. The broad difference being that reading complicated case files and writing judgments on those complicated case files is an extremely, if I may say, mental labor, application of intellect, application of brain, long working hours, and something which, for instance, law firms in India or top litigation in chambers in India pay crazy amounts of money to the lawyers to do the same thing, which we expect our judges to do. So the first point that I would like to make is that the salaries of our judges across the country needs to be substantially revised. And in order to support this point, I would like to just share with you that an average magistrate who starts in the Indian courts, let's say I'm 23, 24 years old, I write the exam for, let us say, judiciary in the state of UP, Uttar Pradesh. And I get appointed, I become a magistrate in, let us say, the city of Agra. What I will get is a compensation or a salary of around 9 lakhs per annum. In addition to that, I will get a house. And in addition to that, I will get some 5,000-6,000 worth of emoluments or perquisites on a monthly basis. If I am a High Court judge in the same state, in the state of UP, my compensation would be around 26 lakhs per annum. So 9 lakhs for a magistrate, 26 lakhs for a High Court judge, around 15 lakhs for a Sessions Court judge, which is in the middle of a magistrate and a High Court judge in the hierarchy. Now let us contrast this with some of the numbers from abroad. A typical or an average High Court equivalent judge in the United Kingdom will get as much as 250,000 pounds per annum, which translates to 2.5 crores per annum. Now, obviously, we can't compare these numbers in absolute because that's a different jurisdiction, and we need to keep in mind the purchase power parity and see the cost of living there as well. But even after you adjust for that, there is a tremendous amount of gap. You're talking about a 10 times more compensation structure in England. And it's not just England. Even if you compare it with a High Court equivalent judge in South Africa, you will end up seeing that they are being paid anywhere around 1.2 crores in the equivalent INR currency per annum. So there also you see that, it's as much as 5 times as compared to what Indian judges are being paid. Indian High Court judges are being paid. Well, the reason why I'm emphasizing so much on money is simply because of the fact that that this entire 3.9 crore cases in the district court, or a total of 4.5 crore cases which are pending today, will not get vanished in the air. They will have to be dealt by the judges of our country.
Yeah.
And the judgments will have to be written by the judges of the country, where you are expecting these judges to work anything between 10 to 12 hours every single day, possibly 6 days a week. And then we might, be able to overcome this problem over a period of next 7, 8, 10 years or 5 to 7 years. So unless and until we compensate our legal officers or our judges adequately, it'll be wrong to expect that they will do that kind of work. And B, even if some of the judges being very, dedicated towards the nation, having a very patriotic feeling, really genuinely believing in helping the society, do it. They will be only cases of exception. They will not be the rule. So if, let's say, 10 judges or 5 judges out of 100 judges do it, that still leaves 90% of the judges not keeping up with, the speed in which, this work should be done. So that is a point that I would like to, kind of submit as far as the problem is concerned. Secondly, another issue which, is important for me to flag here and talk about is the problem with regard to adjournments. You see, now in India, an adjournment is taken or is granted very lightly. If I have to compare a trial which is going on in the US court and a trial which is going on in the Indian court, it will be very clear for me to see by looking at the order sheets that the way Indian judges grant adjournments to the request of the councils is suggestive of the fact that the judges are not really taking their courts very seriously. And this problem is especially at a high level in the district courts of our country. Just to give you an example, an ordinary civil suit will have anything between 30 to 40 hearings or 30 to 40 tariqs, in the words of Mr. Sunny Deol, which would have at least 25 to 50% of adjournments within it. So we are talking about only 20 effective hearings. The other 20 hearings are adjournments, either by the request of the counsel for the plaintiff or by the request of the counsel for the defendant, or because of the reason that the witness has not turned up, or because of the reason that the judge himself is on leave. Now, you see, the problem is that whenever one adjournment takes place, the entire trial gets delayed by 3 months. Because usually in India, you get a date after 2 to 3 months. So, at some point, the parliament may have to come out with a central legislation, or probably making amendments in the Code of Civil Procedure, because there is a separate chapter on adjournments in the Code of Civil Procedure. So possibly make some amendments there, limiting the adjournments to 2 to 3 hearings in the total 40 to 50 hearings or whatever it takes. At some level, this may become a problem because the judges will lose the flexibility to give any more adjournments than that. So let us say, as a judge today, if I don't have flexibility to give adjournments more than, let's say, 2 to 3 adjournments, then it is a problem, because you're taking away an inherent right or an inherent decision-making power of the judge.
Yeah.
But I personally feel that, if we can limit this number of adjournments to a fixed number,
Yes.
it will obviously have its problems, but the benefits will outweigh the problems by a large amount.
Yes.
And given the context of India today, where, we are really struggling to dispose of our cases, I think we need to control our adjournments, because otherwise it will be severely problematic. And the last point that I would like to, deal with this issue of pendency in the Indian courts, and as to, what exactly is the problem? Why exactly is this problem? Has this problem become what it has become? And why there are no signs of this problem receding anytime in the future, is because of the judges numbers per million citizens. Now, this is a point which has been made over and over again in the past as well, so I'm not saying anything which is new, but I'll fail in my duty if I don't highlight this factor as well. India has 20 to 21 judges per million citizens, which means we have 20 to 21 judges per 10 lakh citizens. Whereas a country like USA has as many as 150 judges per 10 lakh citizens. So it again boils down to the budget. It again boils down to the speed in which we can appoint our judges, and the amount of money which we can spend on judicial infrastructure by building additional courtrooms.
Yes.
Having said all of this, I would like to definitely mention that Chief Justice Ramanna, who's the present Chief Justice of India,
Yes,
has been doing a tremendous job in terms of pushing the central government in notifying these appointments of judges at the High Court and the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Now, we obviously understand that the central government led by the BJP obviously has their own ways of functioning, which is full of problems, if I may say. And one of the ways is that when a particular nomination of a judge is not as per their liking, they just go and simply sit over it. They will just not revert back to the Supreme Court, thereby confirming the appointment of that judge at the High Court or the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Ramanna has pretty much made it clear that, listen, as per the law, it's very clear that you cannot reject a collegium's recommendation, the recommendation made by the Supreme Court, and the union government cannot sit over it for a very long period of time. Because then that will mean that the Supreme Court has lost its powers of appointing judges. So it's been pushing the union government fairly hard, and hopefully, we will have more chief justices like Justice Ramanna in the future, who will expedite the appointment of judges at the district court and the High Court level. So I think that is pretty much it in terms of your question with regard to the problem of pendency in India. And let us just hope that the taxpayers' money is allocated to this dinosaur of a problem, which is, kind of created, which has been created in the past so many years.
Um, we see, Roshan, that of late a fair amount of, or shall I say, an unprecedented interference in day-to-day running of government organizations. Um, we see that institutions are fast turning into, if I may say so, toothless tigers that have become incapable of functioning without directions coming from a higher authority. There is a very visible dilution of institutions. There is an overlapping of jurisdiction. There is a cutting across of mandated norms and duties. There is a blurring of definitions. Um, Sometimes it really, I mean, we don't know whether we are coming or going. We don't know who is doing what, and it just seems to be getting more and more intense. This particular phenomenon. For instance, we are seeing currently in an ongoing case, which is very much in the headlines. And we hear some people say that this is not the job of the NCB. It's not the job of the NCB to be rounding up consumers. Um, so, which brings one to think that as a common person, that if this is not the job of NCB, then whose job is it? And if it is not the job of NCB, then what is the NCB's job and why is it doing what it's not supposed to do? And on a very cynical note, if I may say so, that since when have government departments become um, so efficient and so overzealous that not only are they doing their own work, they're also doing the work of some other department? So I mean, one would think that we are at the peak of efficiency where we are so keen to do work that we will even grab somebody else's. So what's going on here? I'm referring to the Aryan Khan case, and so in that context, it would be interesting for our viewers to understand also that what exactly is the NCB mandated to do, and why is it inappropriate for it to be doing what it's doing right now, according to some people.
Yeah, Vandana ji, that's a very topical question. I believe that is a question which is, looming large over the entire country today as to what exactly is happening in this case. Well, as a practicing lawyer and someone who does a lot of criminal law as well, I can only say that it's rather, if I may use the word, funny or unfortunate as to what is happening in this case, because I mean, I can say this with absolute amount of clarity that if this would have not been a case of Aryan Khan, and it would have been a case of any other, random individual or a random person, then there was no question of him not getting or her not getting bail within 2 to 3 days of the arrest.
Yeah.
And I believe now it's been over 24, 25 days since he's been arrested. NCB was created for a much larger reason, and for a, if I may say, different reason than catching hold of these youngsters who are consuming minor amount of quantities. The actual mandate or the actual purpose behind setting up of the NCB was to prevent trafficking of drugs.
Yes.
To prevent large amount of drugs being trafficked from one state to the other, or to prevent such import of drugs from the offshores of our country, from other countries, or from other states across the world. You see, India is geographically located in amongst countries who produce a lot of opium and who produce a lot of drugs. We have Afghanistan on one side, then we have Pakistan also, and then on the other, on the side of the east as well, there's a lot of opium which is produced, and these material have a way to get into the country. Now, the original mandate of the NCB was to ensure that these illegal imports do not take place. And even if they have entered into the country, the trafficking amongst these big time drug dealers do not take place. But obviously, what we've been seeing of late is a complete misuse of this organization by the union government in a way in which it satisfies the, if I may say, political comforts or political reasons of the union government, and in a way in which, they are able to, the central government agencies are able to specifically target the people they want to target. There is no doubt in my mind that if NCB starts chasing these minor cases of drug consumption, please, the important words out there is consumption and not trafficking. Aryan Khan's case is a clear case of drug consumption, not of trafficking. They might say whatever they may say out of the WhatsApp conversations, but it is absolutely clear to anyone who practices and handles NDPS cases that such cases are always cases of drug consumption, not of trafficking. So if the NCB starts handling such minor cases, then I am sure somewhere they will lose focus. Somewhere they will have to divert their time from the larger mandate which has been given to the NCB. And this will only lead to bigger cases going out of the hands while we are targeting these smaller cases. Because you see, the consumption does not multiply itself. Trafficking multiplies itself. Yes. The act of trafficking leads to opening of a lot of channels across the country, which eventually, also has multiple times, which also creates multiple ripple effects leading to consumption. So you have to nip the bud at the stage of trafficking itself, rather than concentrating on consumption. For consumption, there are already state units. Yes. There is an there are anti drug cells which are created by the state police of every state. Yeah. They're already existing. So I believe it is important that the original mandate is stuck to. And this is, to be honest with you, a responsibility of the union government as well at some level, that they direct their central agencies or they direct their agencies which are in their control in the right way. Yeah. So that, the original mandate can be fulfilled.
And as it has been said by many, that the consumer is the victim. The consumer is not the criminal. So therefore, I mean, this really amounts to putting behind bars somebody who goes to file an FIR because his car has been stolen, rather than going and catching the thief. You catch the person whose car has been stolen. So yes, it is very peculiar at many different levels, but it is what it is, and not that one can do anything very revolutionary to change things overnight. But I think even if we are cognizant of what's going on, and even if we can sit back and analyze and have a specific view on situations such as these, I do think it's a step forward. So Roshan, thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you for sharing with us how you became a lawyer / attorney / advocate / thank you very much for that. Thank you also for telling us, taking us inside the judiciary and familiarizing us with what irks the judiciary. And I think there's a lot more that we need to talk about. For instance, we need to also look at perhaps what could be the possible solutions of how to make the judiciary make the cases reach a conclusion faster. But for that, perhaps we will have to meet again, for which I'm sure you will. I mean, you'll just have to find time for that. So we'll meet again very soon. Thank you very much, Roshan, for being here with us. And with that, we come to the end of today's interactive session. Thank you very much, viewers, for being here with us today. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you'd like to share your thoughts and ideas with us, or indeed be part of an interactive session, do reach out to us at inspire@profcongress.in. We look forward to hearing from you. Remember, the greatest of inventions started as a tiny idea that someone once had. So keep those ideas coming and write to us so we can talk more about your ideas. Till next time then, goodbye. See you soon. Jai Hind.
Thank you.